Do you want to know how the world actually works? Well, the strange thing about power is that most people never actually see it. They see politics and think pawns. They see headlines, shills. They see billionaires on magazine covers, staged. They see stock prices moving up and down on a screen, late. But that's theater. Power itself is quieter than that. Power moves through incentives, debt, ownership, and information. And above all, power moves through systems most people never realize exist. And that's by design, invisibly. Because the modern world is not run by kings anymore. It's run by networks. And once you understand the networks, you start seeing the same pattern everywhere. You see the matrix. You realize the world is not random. It's not organized around flow. It is organized completely around flows. Flows of capital, influence, dependency, and attention. And the people who control those flows control the future. Think Running Man meets Wall Street. Most people spend their entire lives believing money moves because of hard work alone. But that is not how the system actually functions. Money moves through leverage. Always. Not effort, not morality, not intelligence, leverage. And the man who working 80 hours a week may create enormous value. But the person who owns the system he works inside captures the upside. That is the hidden architecture of modern capitalism. Ownership matters more than labor. Distribution matters more than production. And control matters more than participation. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. That is why entire industries suddenly consolidate seemingly overnight. One day, there are thousands of small businesses, and then suddenly private equity arrives. Debt becomes cheap, roll-ups begin, the fragmented industry disappears. HVAC, dental clinics, veterinary practices, accounting firms, managed IT services, mobile home parks, self-storage, pharmacies. Different industries, very same playbook. Because capital is always searching for inefficiency. And once large pools of money identify predictable cash flow, the acquisition machine begins. And that's how power moves. Quietly. Not with explosions, not with speeches, and not with any hoopla, but with spreadsheets. The average person thinks history changes through elections, and maybe sometimes it does. But more often, history changes when capital reallocates. Just ask France. Don't worry. Even though it's been a couple of centuries, they still remember, or at least they should. But maybe that's another topic for another video, and it would be a good one. But regardless, when interest rates change, civilizations change. When energy prices change, governments destabilize. When debt becomes expensive, entire business models collapse. Most people never connect these dots because they've been trained to think in events instead of systems. But systems determine events, always. So the Federal Reserve raises rates by a few percentage points, and suddenly startups die. Commercial real estate implodes. Regional banks weaken. Budgeted corporate projects stop in their tracks. Layoffs spread. Acquisitions surge. Assets transfer. And the average person thinks these are unrelated news stories. They are not unrelated. They are downstream effects. This is why the most powerful people in the world are often invisible. The real operators rarely need or even want public attention. As the kids would say, shout out to Jim Simons from Renaissance Technologies. If you don't know the name or the company, look it up. And since we don't want to be involved in their next lawsuit, we'll just leave it there. But if you do this small homework assignment, you'll start to see the point. Because visibility is not power. Control is power. And control often looks boring from the outside. A pension fund allocating billions, a central bank adjusting liquidity, an institutional investor buying infrastructure, a private equity firm consolidating regional providers, a defense contractor lobbying for procurement expansion. None of it feels cinematic in the moment, but together, these decisions shape the trajectory of nations. The modern world is not controlled by a single conspiracy. It's controlled by aligned incentives. That is far more powerful. Nobody needs to coordinate everything manually when the financial system already rewards certain behaviors automatically. Banks want stability, governments want growth, corporations want quarterly performance, politicians want re-election, media companies want engagement, asset managers want returns, and once these incentives begin interacting, entire societal directions emerge naturally. Housing becomes unaffordable, healthcare becomes financialized, universities become debt machines, media becomes outrage-based, and corporations become short-term optimized. No individual mastermind required, just incentive structures. And this is where most people become trapped because they continue operating emotionally inside systems designed mathematically. They chase status while ownership consolidates above them. They argue politics while asset prices quietly rise beyond reach. They consume endlessly while institutions accumulate infrastructure, land, data, and leverage. The game happening above them is not ideological, it is structural. That's why some of the wealthiest organizations on earth appear politically neutral, or at least sort of try to, because power that survives long-term avoids emotional attachment. It adapts. The smartest capital in the world does not care what slogans people are chanting this year. It cares about energy, infrastructure, demographics, debt, scarcity, technology, and control over distribution. That is where civilizations are shaped. And perhaps the most important realization of all, money is not just currency. Money is stored human energy. Every dollar represents labor, time, attention, life force, which means whoever directs capital directs human behavior itself. Entire populations can be steered through incentives alone. What careers become prestigious? What industries receive investment? What technologies dominate? What narratives spread? What ideas become untouchable? What risks become impossible to discuss? People believe they are making independent decisions while unknowingly responding to invisible economic gravity. And once enough financial gravity forms around an idea, reality itself begins reorganizing around it. And that is how empires function now, not through occupation, through dependency. The most powerful institutions no longer need direct control of populations. They simply shape the systems populations depend on. Banking, payments, cloud infrastructure, healthcare, logistics, data, communications, debt markets. These control infrastructure, and behavior follows naturally. That is why modern power often feels impossible to fight, because it is embedded into convenience. People voluntarily plug themselves into the machine every day. And to be clear, this does not mean the system is evil.